So I thought it'd be interesting to do a video as if I'm doing an interview without actually being interviewed by somebody, right? One of the challenges that exists today is that many resumes are really static, right? They only tell you so much. And when it comes down to it, right, success in a company is certainly about what you know, but more importantly, how you fit into the team. And that is really the critical thing. So I thought, why not do a sort of promo of myself and what I have to offer? So that's what this video is. Actually, if you're interested in doing one with me, where I play the role of the interview, you tell me about yourself, let me know, kind of thing. Reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want to, or you can comment on my blog, whichever. So let's get started. And the questions I'm going to ask myself, actually, before I get started, will be sort of the standard questions that we often see in most interviews, right? So there's about 9 of them and plus a little bit more. So we'll take a look at each of them. So now let's get started. All right. So the first question we often get is, tell me about yourself. How would you describe yourself? What makes you unique? Oh. And that question sometimes can be a little challenging. Now, for myself, I have, 20 plus years as a technical trainer. Most of it has been at VMware. I started at VMware in 2005. I started as a support engineer, knowing nothing about the product, but they hired me based on how I fit and my ability to troubleshoot. Both core skills that really did help me during my time as a support engineer. So I worked on ESX. I worked on a new product that we introduced called Virtual Center, today now known as Virtual vCenter, and even worked on a beta of a product called Converter, which eventually replaced P2V. So I troubleshooted a lot of things and became very adept at troubleshooting performance-related issues on virtual machines, as well as security issues and overall troubleshooting for Virtual Center or vCenter, along with Converter itself. Now, after about a year and a half of that, I eventually got promoted to be an escalation engineer because I was pretty good at dealing with the business side of things, being able to interact with, executive level and being able to calm them down and be able to troubleshoot issues before I sent them off to engineering. Usually they were, level 1 issues. I had a lot of fun doing that job. It was really a great experience because I got to, troubleshoot a whole variety of things, but also be part of an overall team. There was not a single ticket, outside of a few very rare ones, that wasn't worked on as a team, and that was actually one of the things I did like about it. However, life does change things, and I wanted to move to the US, and as it happened around the same time, there was a job opening for a technical trainer. And so I went to Palo Alto, I interviewed for that, got that job, moved to New York with my girlfriend. She was doing her master's at NYU, so it was perfect. We lived there for 3 years. I did a lot of in-person training. At that time, it was before online training was popular. We did start around that time, which would have been around 2010, doing WebEx training. As an alternative for some customers. But quite often I would go on site, either at the Manhattan office, was actually in the financial district, or to the customer site, kind of thing. And around that time, we had purchased a new product called VDM, which eventually became View, which eventually became Horizon. And I was the main instructor for it for the first few years. That allowed me to travel around the world, basically teaching customers how to use the product, as well as partners. I actually started doing conference presentations. So I presented at Partner Exchange and eventually did my first VMworld. Now, around that time, there was a change in the way education was at VMware, and so I became part of a sort of tiger team called the Tech Lead team that sort of interacted between what the instructors needed, what our content developers needed, what certification needed, and what other teams needed to be able to sort of bridge the gaps kind of thing. And so while the amount of time that I was teaching was reduced, instead of it being, say, 60, 70, 80%, it was now maybe about 40% of my time. The rest of my time was working on or working with curriculum development, working with certification, working with other teams so that they could get the best education that we could provide for them. As part of that role, I got involved with our VMware certified instructors and helped maintain and upgrade our rubric that we use to certify instructors, and actually ended up certifying over 300 instructors. I also became a member of what was called the CTO's Ambassadors Program, which act as a liaison between the field and our engineering teams. And also got involved in some of our employee resource groups, specifically Pride at VMware.com, or Pride at VMware, sorry, and was the trans co-lead for that. Now, I still taught. That didn't go away, right? A lot of the teaching started shifting more to an online format. This was before, the pandemic and all of that type of stuff really occurred. And as time went on, I became fairly well known as the main contact for EUC. I helped with the integration of AirWatch into our AirWatch's education team into our education team, and started seeing ways that we could sort of combine the AirWatch product, which became Workspace ONE, along with Horizon and make it sort of unified piece. I worked on many certifications, including the creation of the VCDX desktop, although I should have tried it when we first released it. Never got to actually doing it because life was just overly busy. I also ended up writing a certification book. This was for View 5. Which I will never do a certification book ever again. It's really hard. And it tends to be out of date by the time it's published. So, and around 2019, 2020, somewhere around that time frame, might have been actually a little bit later, we started seeing a shift because of the acquisition by Broadcom, that there'd be less of a in-person training, less of even an online training, and more video training. So I shifted from being a principal instructor to what was called a staff technical learning engineer. Really, it was a digital content creator and producer. And so it was about modernizing the education team more towards sort of an e-learning kind of thing without sacrificing quality. And as part of that, I worked on our learning paths as well as did video recordings. Because Horizon was being basically spun off to its own company, which is now Omnissa, this meant that I wasn't going to be doing any of that stuff. So I was going to learn products that I hadn't really touched as much before, although they were very familiar. Cloud Director and vSAN were very well known to me. They've been part of Horizon Cloud. I'd used Cloud Director quite a bit for our lab environments and had used it as sort of part and parcel of the Horizon Cloud on Azure course that I had been managing for the previous 5 years or so. And then also Tanzu Grid and Kubernetes, right? So I started getting my feet wet in those particular things, kind of thing. And that's sort of all of me, right? Those are all my technical abilities, but part of that, what's not really visible in all of that, is all the other things that I could do, right? I mentored colleagues, I reverse mentored senior colleagues. I was always available for whoever needed something, right? You needed help with something, I'll help you find it. And that was actually one of my big things. It's my troubleshooting nature sort of coming out, kind of thing. And so those are part of who I am is, I like problems. I like creating things. And my time at VMware in particular really allowed me to do that. I was part of a team that helped create one of, in my opinion, the best education teams that I've ever seen in tech, right? There are very few that had that ability and that level of engagement, kind of thing that we had with customers. And it really, ultimately, everything that we did was about how can I help you, customer, achieve your successes? How can I help you, partner, achieve your successes? How can I help you, colleague, achieve your successes? And that's really what I'm about and the way that I look at what I do for work. Next question is usually, why do you want to work here? What interests you about the role? What motivates you? What are you passionate about? Well, beyond the obvious, I want a job. I mean, I want to work. For me, there is, I mean, especially as a trainer, uh, it's like a vocation, right? That moment when you sit there and you talk about something and you see the student and their eyes get really wide and they're like, oh, it's a light bulb moment. And it's usually followed by, oh, right? The, oh crap, I'm going to lose my job if I don't fix this because I misunderstood how the product worked, right? I actually had a student who actually did that. I ended up helping him after the class so he could solve it. It was all about snapshots on virtual machines. And if you know virtual machines and snapshots, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But that type of thing. And if I'm applying for a job at your company, besides the fact that it's a job, it's usually because there's something there that sparks my interest, because I see an opportunity to create. I see an opportunity to troubleshoot. I see an opportunity to make a difference for customers to get the best out of whatever the product is, right? And I'm passionate about that. Now, I can learn any technology. That's not that hard, kind of thing. But it's those types of things that really interest me. A lot of, you may get an application from me and you're like, why would they want to work here? Why would they want to do that role? It's because I want to go beyond just being a technical trainer, right? I've been a trainer for the last 15 plus years. I know I have more to offer than just being a talking head storyteller, right? I'm really good at that stuff, right? I can talk your ear off, which is really funny because if you know me, I'm a bit of an introvert. But I know that I can actually do a lot more than just that. And that's part of why, I look at roles beyond just a technical trainer. I want to be able to really push myself to see what else can I do. I'll do pretty much anything. The exception is sales. I have a hard time with rejection, and I do prefer a certain amount of comfort in what I'm doing if I know where my boundaries are, kind of thing. So, anyways. Next question you often get is, why are you leaving your current job? What did you like most about the position? What did you like least? Well, it's not my choice to leave my current job. Broadcom had made that decision as part of, a reduction in force, or RIF as they refer to it. I didn't have a choice in the matter. So here we are, right? What did I like most about it? I love that it was remote. I love that I was basically told, here, we need this. You figure out how to do it. Okay, yeah. That independence was really great, really helpful, kind of thing. And I love that part of it. The part I liked least was, and it's really no fault of Broadcom. This was something we knew when they acquired us, but environments that don't have a culture don't tend to breed creativity, don't tend to breed productivity, don't tend to breed, excellence. To me, ultimately, everything I do is for the benefit of my colleagues, for the benefit of my partners, for the benefit of the customer. And if that is not part of the envisionment of the culture, that, it's all about the shareholders, it doesn't feel good. It makes me feel icky, for lack of a better description, kind of thing. So, I loved my time at VMware. It was great. We did a lot of amazing things. We upended what IT was defined as, basically from about 2005 till about 2018, 19, just before the pandemic. A lot of that may change now with AI. A lot of those gains that we had in that probably are gone, but who knows? What are your goals for the future? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I always love those ones, right? Where do I see myself in 5 years? Well, My goals for the future, I would like to be a manager director of an education team. I would like to be able to create a center of excellence. I would like to create, you know, even more great training for customers, for partners, for colleagues, kind of thing. And, I've been trying to get in a manager's position for the last 5, 6 years anyways. So this is a perfect opportunity, I think, for me to be able to show my chops. Now, I don't have any fancy certifications towards that, but that doesn't, isn't from a lack of a trying kind of thing. And so I'm hopeful that, within 5 years, I will be a manager or a director at a corporate level for an education team, right? What is your greatest accomplishment or mints, depending upon how many you have? That's a hard one in a lot of ways because I look back and honestly, it's my time at VMware. And I say that, I mean, that's a very broad answer to the question, but you know, I'm very proud of the work I did as part of the VMware Certified, or what we often refer to as VCIs, the VMware Certified Instructors Program. I probably certified over 300 instructors and helped them be the best that they could be, right? Being an instructor isn't just about being, the person that knows everything about the product. It's your ability to be able to share that information at the level of the audience that you have, right? Being able to present at VMworld. I mean, those experiences can't, be replicated. Publishing a book, even though I will never write a certification book again, I happily will write a technical book. I'm working on some novels, but, I don't think I'll do certification book again. A lot of the things I did at VMware as part of the tech lead team are some of the things I'm most proud of because of the fact that I know, and I've had customers who've come back who, they've sat through the same training multiple years in a row because they've said, we learn something new every time and we love, the way you tell the story. Those types of things, when I hear customers say that, when I hear partners and colleagues say that, those are my accomplishments and those are the things I'm most proud of. Now, quite often you get asked in an interview, can you tell me how you overcame some particular situation, right? It's really hard to narrow that down to one thing, right? Because, I mean, you always have stressful stuff and et cetera. And depending upon how broad the question is, right? So if I look at it from a technical perspective, I had a situation where, let me see, which one can I use for the example? I had a whole bunch over the years, but probably the biggest one was our Horizon Cloud on Microsoft Azure lab environment. Someone managed to erase the Active Directory server. So we had it set up, we were running Horizon Cloud on Azure. We had a VM in each region that represented the Active Directory, and someone managed to erase that VM the day before the class started. I don't know how this happened. Anyways, so I cleared out all of the guest accounts and then rebuilt the server, and it took me probably about 3 hours, and then set the server so that only I could modify it, kind of thing. And we redid the lab environment so the students would have their own Active Directory that they could manage, kind of thing that would communicate. So it was a peer kind of thing. So if they blew that one up, that was fine. I didn't have to worry about it as much, kind of idea. But it meant learning, because I had always thought, why would anyone do that? But in some regions, they like to go beyond what the lab is. That's a very specific technical one. On a non-technical perspective, between probably 2011 to about 2014, well, actually 2016, yeah. I suffered very bad burnout. And I really didn't realize it until I presented at LISA 2016, which is a Usenext conference. It was in Boston, I think, at the time. And I saw a presentation by, and his name escapes me, unfortunately, but he was from GitLabs, and he was talking about how he had suffered burnout and how his team had helped him overcome it, or at least address it. You cannot, this is not something you overcome overnight. You have to make actual steps to addressing it. And so when I saw that, a little light bulb went off. Ooh. And I realized that's me. He's talking about, that was me. I went for many years with no more than maybe an hour or 2 hours of sleep because of burnout. And so I began making changes in the way that I did things so that I wouldn't burn out again. Now, I have had minor burnouts between those events, but it's getting less and less because I've realized that I wasn't setting boundaries, right? One of the downsides to being remote is that line between work and personal can blur, and you have to put absolute boundaries in place. So for your, as a simple example, I made my calendar so it would start at a specific time and end at a specific time. Meetings can only be in that time unless there's an exception emergency. So occasionally, once a month, I would have to have a meeting that'd be in the APJ, or Asia Pacific Japan time zone. And so in those instances, I'd make sure that my calendar reflected that kind of thing, those types of things, and began to educate myself on what burnout actually is and what it's not, as part of it. And so I've made that part of who I am. Now, normally in interviews, you get asked salary. I'm not going to talk about the salary. I will say this. I was paid very well at VMware. I would love to be able to get that again. But I'm also not afraid to be less than that. I certainly don't want to be half that if I can avoid it. But I'm willing to take a little bit off if someone's willing to take a chance on me to work with me, to be a manager, to be a director, to, go beyond, kind of thing. Because I know in the end that will all work out. And so I look at it that way, kind of thing. It's always the weird conversation kind of idea. And of course, at the end of any interview, they usually ask you, do you have any questions? Right? Now, this is always, for some people, this can be a little bit tricky because you're sort of like, oh, no, I'm fine. You interviewed me. Great. Let's move forward. But quite often, my question usually is, for someone who's interviewing me, is, why do you like working here? Why do you like working with this company? What excites you to wake up every morning besides the paycheck, besides the cat sitting on your face or the dog sitting on your face, whatever it may be? What excites you to work at this place? Those types of questions are good ones to ask, right? Kind of thing. Or, what does the company do to support employees beyond what's written on the website, right? That's all nice and good, but what actually happens, kind of thing. Now, when you do interviews, there's a few things to keep in mind, and there is something known as the 5 C's of interviewing, right? The first is have confidence. Believe in yourself. You're offering your skills to an potential employer, right? You have something to offer. That's you, right? That's the stuff up here, kind of thing. Tied in with that confidence is your competence. Don't discount all the things that you've done over the years. I mean, whether you're, if you're just coming out of university, that's fine, right? You've learned things there that you can still port over, and your own personality, your own self is also something that you should be confident in, right? And the things that you've achieved a BA, you've achieved a master's, a PhD, a high school diploma, right? Whatever it is that you've gone through life, you have a certain competence, right? Maybe you don't have all the technical chops. That's okay, right? Technology is something that anybody can learn. What you bring as a person, your interpersonal skills, your adaptability, your coaching, your mentoring, your ability to be a dynamic speaker, storyteller, your ability to set goals, your ability to understand business, be a leader. All of those things are not things that can be necessarily taught, There can be grains of that stuff in the things that you do day to day already. Don't discount those. Communication. Your ability to communicate who you are and what you offer is really key, right? And being confident in speaking, being open, being, amenable to suggestions and offerings, really, really important. Your character, right? That is something that you're bringing to a role, right? Your ability to be yourself. And as someone who's trans, that's really important. I need to be able to be myself, right? I'm not going to stand there and wave the trans flag all day long, but I'm not going to shy away from who I am. And then last but not least, and probably the most important one, is chemistry. When it comes down to it, right, as I said, anybody can learn the technology, but if you're not going to fit with the team, if you're not going to be a team builder, or a good colleague, etc., they're not going to want to have you. So those are the 5 C's of interviewing that you need to keep in mind. So hopefully you found this interesting. I know it's a bit long. Shocking. I'm an instructor. We talk lots. But hopefully it's been fascinating. If you want me to do this with you, as I said, pop me a note, either on my blog or on my LinkedIn, and we'll set up a time and we'll do it. The big thing with this is if you decide to do this, it's going to be a conversation. I want you to be very relaxed, because the more you practice it, the better you are at it. So we'll see you next time.